Hi, it's Paul, and in this video I'm an old man with a Brompton that I'm converting to an electric Brompton with a Swytch kit. Let's go have a look. So here's the kit on its arrival at my house. I don't know why I've showed it in the kitchen, but there you have it. I don't normally do unboxings, but it's quite well packaged, so I'll show you this. This is the box it comes in, and inside the box we have the wheel, somewhat obviously. We take the wheel out, and underneath the wheel there are 4 further boxes, and the one on the bottom left is the battery, the one on the top right is the bits and pieces for fitting, the fitting kit if you like, and the other 2 are empty. Also there are some fitting and usage instructions, which I have to say are very good, and there are also some very good instructions on the internet, and that's it, off you go. Throw the bike up on the bike stand and begin by taking the front wheel out, changing the tyre, etc. Which is probably the most difficult bit about the whole job, purely because Brompton tyres are notoriously difficult to change. So once the wheel's in and the brakes adjusted, you move on to the magnet ring and the pedal sensor. This is where I had one of the problems, so I'll come back to that in a minute. After you've put the magnet ring and the pedal sensor on, you put the bracket on the handlebars, you mount the battery, and you cable it all up, and you should be good to go. That's where I had my second problem. So, let's go and explore it in a little bit more detail. First problem then, the pedal sensor. Magnet ring went on great. That was a perfect fit for this particular pedal arm. It came with 2 or 3 different options, and this one was a really easy fit, really solid fit, very good, no issues there at all. There's 2 positions Swytch give to fit the pedal sensor. One is on the upright frame tube coming out the bottom bracket, and the other is on the flat section of the box that comes out the back of the bottom bracket, so to speak. This is what you get to fit the pedal sensor. This is the sensor itself with a little swivel bracket that it comes on, 2 self-adhesive pads to give different thicknesses, and you also get some cable ties to secure it properly. I felt that even with both the block strips stuck behind it, there was way too much of a sensing gap between the pedal sensor position and the magnet disc if I mounted it on the upright frame tube, so I discounted that idea. But on the rear box, the gap was too small, and with just the bracket on its own and the pedal sensor, it really didn't give enough space, so I discounted that idea. What I ended up with was I took the hinged or swivel bracket off the back of the pedal sensor, warmed up the 2 mounting points with a heat gun and bent them out the way, and mounted it flat on a couple of pieces of double-sided sticky tape on the side of the box, and that got me about the right gap. It's not a particularly pretty solution, but I felt it was better than the 2 possibilities I'd got out of the box, so to speak. You can just about see one of the side brackets bent out of the way behind the cable tie here. To be honest, I could have cut the 2 side brackets off because they don't do anything anymore, but I was just worried that it wasn't going to work as a solution and I was going to have to put it back as it was. The cable tying looks a bit ugly, and they're not cable ties that come with the kit. They were ones I had lying about, and they are both there because I wanted to get one on each end of the pedal sensor to make sure it wasn't going anywhere. So that's the issues I had with the pedal sensor. That's dealt with now, so let's move on to the actual failure that I had on it, which was, I think, to do with the cabling. So when I first built it up, I put the cabling together loosely. I didn't cable it all tight up, and I didn't put it all in the correct routing, but I connected it up to make sure it worked. And it did. It was fine. It's perfect. Then what I needed to do was disconnect 2 of the connections, that being the pedal sensor, which you can see here, and now the motor connection. I had to disconnect both of those in order to reroute the cables. They were really difficult to get apart, and the pedal sensor cable, particularly this connector, was very, very difficult, and I had to use a lot of force to pull it apart. And personally, I think that was what the problem was. I think the wires pulled out of the connector inside and the connector failed. Swytch tech support say they've had a couple of issues with wires coming adrift inside the handlebar bracket, and so that's the section they replaced along with the cable, which of course came with half of the connector that I felt was a problem in the first place. So either way, doesn't really matter, problem was solved. So the point I'd make, if I was going to do one again, I would make absolutely sure that I got my cable routing all right first time and cable tied it up before I made the connections, because that way I'm not going to have to disconnect it and play around with the connections, which, whether they are a failure point or not, are very hard work to get apart. So here's where the connections all finally ended up. They're all tucked away under the handlebar bracket. I have to say I'm not particularly happy about the fact that there's exposed connector ends. That kind of worries me with water ingress or all the rest of it. I'd much prefer to see a blanking plug on the end of it, but that's me. Here you can see that once it's all done properly, the cable routing runs in exactly the same lines as the existing Brompton cabling. You just cable tie it to it. Some of the cable ties you might want to leave a little bit loose because it needs room to sort of move about as you do the folding assembly. So I would suggest again that before you actually tighten them all up finally, make sure it all folds, make sure everything goes in the right place and it folds, unfolds, etc. before you commit and fully tighten the cable ties. So in conclusion then, would I do another one? Yeah, absolutely. Enjoyed doing it, wasn't particularly difficult. In total probably took me, I think I said in the other video, it took me about 2 hours. Yes, I reckon I could do one in an hour without any trouble at all. Now I know what to do. The one thing I'd look out for is the mounting of the pedal sensor. That looks like it can be a bit tricky. And as I say, if I was going to recommend anything, I'd say make sure your cable routing's right before you finally connect it all up. Other than that, it seems a good kit. Long term, I'm not going to know because it's not going to be me that's riding it, but I will get feedback from the person that's using it. So we shall see what happens. I want to make a quick mention of Swytch technical support. I contacted them by email and I've got no complaints about their reaction whatsoever. I think I contacted them on the weekend. They got back to me first thing on the Monday morning and we went backwards and forwards with a couple of bits of video and pictures of what I felt was the problem and them making sure that I'd installed it right, which is fair enough. And by Wednesday morning I'd got the replacement part to fit on and get the bike running, so no complaints at all. As always then, I hope this video has been of some use to you. If it has, then please feel free to like and subscribe, and also consider using the Ko-fi button to make a contribution to the running of the channel and the website. If you've got any questions or comments, stick them in the comments below or head on over to oldmanwith.com and put them on the ask a question function. And other than that, thanks as always for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.